All right, and we are live. Peace be unto you. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And welcome to the Sanctuary of Saints, where our mission is to develop and mature the children of God while building a self sustainable community. Though being inside the sanctuary is strictly for the children of God, I encourage all people to listen, that they may mature, that they may grow, and one day be of service to the Most High through His people. So this class tonight is the news class. Is the news class with a K. Right? We put a K in front of it to denote that what we're going to speak about has already been spoken before, and we have a grasp on what's happening now. So what we do here is we focus on primarily connecting current events to the unfolding fulfillment or receiving at times of prophecy in the Bible. That's what this class is centered around. Although this is our first episode on this platform, we have been doing this class weekly. I have been doing this class with various other brothers outside of this platform for about 5 years almost. I was thinking about that and how long we've been covering these things, these events. So we've covered a multitude of topics, you know, in the news class. I've wrote some of them out, chiefly being the fall of America via a multitude of judgments, including but not limited to the exposing of government corruption, economic collapse, political war, civil war, democracy being replaced by tyranny, and ultimately invasion and nuclear destruction. And that was just some of the things that we've covered over the years. Um, it's always interesting when I see something happen nowadays. I say, hey, we talked about that. I remember when we had that news class about such and such. So, it's a shame that we don't have all those episodes that we can upload and go into, but we're here now and we have a lot of things to talk about from here on in. With that being said, this class is not meant to scare anybody. I know a lot of times when we hear doom and gloom and things like that, our our first response is to dismiss it as, nah, he's just exaggerating, or he's fear mongering. That's the biggest word that I see being used today to describe when we go into these classes and talk about these different things that are happening in the earth and where they are leading to. So the purpose is not to scare you or to, gaslight you. It is to prepare you. Some people think this class is would be gaslighting because when you look at that definition of gaslighting, it's about manipulating the other individual into thinking that their reasoning faculties aren't sound, right? And so when you hear information like this that will ultimately fly in the face of how you think life is supposed to go on and continue, you might consider this gaslighting. But I can assure you it is none of those things. The purpose of the class is to prepare us for what the scriptures say is surely going to come to pass. Not maybe. So for those of you who wholeheartedly believe in the Bible and in the word of our Lord and Savior, going to read a passage of scripture that has been a staple in this class. Matthew chapter 24 and verse 6. And this is in context of Christ telling his disciples what they should expect preceding his return. Verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So these are some of the worst times that are going to come upon the earth that are that is going to precede the return of Christ. There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking, as we're going to touch on in this class, from now until that point. And what we should be doing, if we are going to truly endeavor to be disciples of Christ, is to prepare ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually for these times that will happen. Not that they might happen, they will happen. So here what we do is we focus on the preparation aspect by watching, praying, and preparing on all levels. Okay? But the first thing we have to do is watch and call out. A lot of times we get so caught up in our daily lives, we get caught up in our jobs, taking care of families and things like that. We lose sight of the world around us and what actually is going on. So that is what this class now is going to be for on Friday evenings. Okay, Friday evenings we have officially changed it over. Okay, due to some scheduling. Right? And it's just better for everybody, I feel like. So tonight's class, we're going to focus on a viral interview between world famous journalist Tucker Carlson and U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. So this discussion or a debate has been happening for quite some time on a local and religious level. A lot of us have been talking about this for years, who the Jews are, who they're not, who the land belongs to, who it doesn't belong to. We've, gone through prophecies and different scriptures, making the case for who they are and who they aren't, who curses fit, so forth and so on. So this has been on a local and religious level, a smaller level, a topic of discussion for quite some time. I would at least say a few decades at this point. Ever since the current state of Israel have decided that they are a nation state and that they can operate there, that discussion has, I would say, been happening. So I don't want to to act like or pretend that this conversation hasn't been happening. What I rather want to do is point out the scale of it now. So now what this interview has done, it has magnified this conversation. Okay. This conversation that we've been having for quite some time. It has magnified it on a world scale. Okay. And that's something that we know we should expect. Okay. We should expect that, when the little guy says something, it might get a little traction, a couple views, but when powerful men and men with influence say the same thing, people are more prone to actually pay attention and then do some research. Right? There's more truth in that respect. So this was a very, very powerful interview. And of course, Brother Chris, get in there whenever you want to add to the conversation. Appreciate him. He's going to be helping us out, making some points and playing the actual videos. Okay. So I want to talk about this briefly, what we're going to be seeing and breaking down, and then talk about how ground shaking this interview truly is from now going into the future. So this discussion, as I said, has been happening for a while. However, with this light that has been cast on it, we have now seen clearly those that have a rational thinking brain, who are reasonable at all, understand that a falsehood was just brought to light, right? Light shined on darkness in that interview. That light is the truth of the situation, right? The reality that what we have been programmed to think doesn't make any sense as it pertains to who's over there in the land and who's supposed to be and for what reasons they're over there and can be over there. So that's what this conversation did, it cast a great light on the falsehood, on the propaganda that has been spread all over the earth. The end of propaganda is mass deception. That's how come terms like anti-Semite can just be thrown out there and stick, and you lose your entire livelihood uh, based off of somebody labeling you this term that nobody really knows what it means. So the ultimate propaganda, or the purpose of it, is deception to the end of complete power and control over the human body, mind, and soul. That's the purpose of propaganda. That is why they will spread lies and deceit and falsehood that you don't even realize is that until light hits it and truth hits it. So that's what this interview has done. Now, deception is Satan's greatest weapon. I always teach that. Deception is Satan's greatest weapon. He deceives you into thinking that what you want to do, what you actually uh, want to do with the lust of your flesh, is okay to do against the will of God. That's what he gets you to do, right? And he does that through various means. Okay? He also uses deception to suppress truth, right? To suppress righteousness, okay? So that people walk in transgression. Okay, so that is what Satan's greatest weapon is. And we see that here on full display. So by default, the Middle East is the region that we're talking about, and it's the hotbed right now. Everybody's trying to fight over that. Everybody is upset and feels like, hey, these guys who have settled over here is, you know, messing with everybody. And hey, do they even belong here? They don't belong here. So this has been happening for some time, and we finally get this epic interview. So Tucker Carlson, for those of you who are not familiar, I want to talk a little bit about Tucker Carlson. He is a world-class journalist. He's a purist, right? One of the last pure journalists that we have. What a journalist is supposed to do is they are supposed to represent the sentiments of the masses, right, to the powers that be. That's what the journalist is supposed to do. They're also supposed to be transparent to the general population about things that the powers that be are doing. So they are like the middleman, if you will, between the power structure and the common man. Okay, their job is to report what's going on truthfully, right? And they're supposed to do so with integrity. Okay, so they're not supposed to be uh, bought. Their opinions are not supposed to be paid for. They're not supposed to turn a blind eye to certain things that they may see and report because they have friends or whatever the case may be. That's technically what a journalist is supposed to be. Now, that has been tainted through corporations, right? So if a newspaper is owned and published by a corporation, it's automatically not pure, right? It's all the purity is automatically removed, just so people know, because they can't write and post things that their employer don't like, right? So that's how come journalists have to go and get what stories cleared, right? We have to go and we have this story. I think it's gonna be great. This is da 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 da, but we gotta go and clear it. All right. So when you have to go and clear it, the boss is gonna look at it and say, "Well, my boss isn't gonna like this." All right. I have to make sure this is in the protocol of what my boss says is okay, because we're a business here. Your journalism cannot, all right, cost the business money. Okay. So Tucker Carlson, he is a journalist that has bucked the system year after year, decade after decade, revealing truth and speaking truth to power. So this is why he still he actually has grown more famous as an independent journalist than when he was with Fox for all those years. Okay, so he gets millions of views when he goes and does interviews. He's done famous interviews with Vladimir Putin and other heads of state as well. Okay, so he gets millions of views. Now this specific topic, he has not been as outspoken on as lately, or as now he is in times past. And I do think that has something to do with the fact that he was with Fox for all those years, and there's only so much that he can really go into. But ever since he got fired from Fox, you can see him really start to talk about this issue of Israel and their influence on the United States, right? Their economy, their political system, and also, more importantly, their dealings in the land, right? Their dealings in the land and who is there in their oppression of the other peoples around. Now, even more lately, he's been talking about, hey, the head of state there isn't even his family isn't even from there. What are how do we know? Then the light bulb must have went on in his head. How do we even know that these are the people that are supposed to be here? Now, in journalism, when you are pursuing certain cases and certain topics, when you're speaking to power, right, when you get an opportunity to, there's a certain way that you have to go about speaking to them. You can't just come out and say, hey, you guys are bigots, you guys are frauds, and you came in here and occupied this land. It doesn't belong to you. You aren't the people. Look at your skin. Look at the document. You can't go in there and just do that. You have to set things up. You have to, beat around the bush. You have to lead them certain places with questioning, right? And that's what a good journalist will do. They'll get you to the truth in a tactful way. And this is exactly what you're going to see here in this interview. It was a masterful job. It was, I watched this certain portion that we're going to play. I watched the whole thing, but I watched this certain portion that we're going to play a few times, and you can see just the tactician and the great debater that he is. And he doesn't get sidetracked with the fluff that they continue to bring, right? He doesn't get sidetracked. He does a little bit, but then he's like, well, wait a minute. Let's bring it back to this point now. So we're going to go into it because it does also, as the title says, have great prophetic implications on our Exodus. So for the few of you all who are watching, the gym at towards the end of the class is going to be going into our Exodus and what that looks like practically. All right. So with that being said, I'm gonna stop talking so much and get to the video. Let's go ahead and start playing.
Who are the people? Who are the modern? Yes, who are the descendants? So we know, and I believe, and I agree with you as a Christian, that God promised this land from modern day Iraq to modern day Egypt to this people, the Jews, to Abram's, actually not to Abram's descendants, as it says in Genesis 15. Who are his descendants now, and how do we know who they are? I think they're the Jews, and we know who they are because they've always been a Jewish people. There has been an unbroken line of Jewish.
Let's stop right there. So we're going to be doing a lot of stopping. Hopefully you guys can hear. Okay, I heard it pretty well. So right out the gate, who are the people? I agree and you agree that Genesis 15 says that this land belongs to Abraham and his descendants. That is the topic. Okay. Focus on that for a second. I'm going to read the passage of scripture they're referring to, Genesis chapter 15 and verse 18. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. So those are all the names of the people that currently were occupying the land that God promised the children of Israel. When we look at it on its face, let's take out who the people are, who you think they are and who you think they're not. The 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 notion, or the process of, rather, God removing people from the land and placing people in the land has always been a thing. It has been a perpetual cycle that the Lord moves people, migrations, and overthrows kingdoms, and new kingdoms are set up. Okay. And it will happen again. The Bible calls it him shaking the heavens and the earth and shaking the nations. And we'll get that passage of scripture, I believe, in later tonight's class. But he starts off by a simple question: who are the descendants? Now, what you heard Mike Huckabee, I want to start off. This is the deep dive right away. Mike Huckabee says, "I think." Number one, I think this is the issue. The issue is it's not a clear, concise answer. And how do we know? That was another caveat to the question. Who who are the descendants, and how do we know? And then Mike Huckabee says he thinks. So first thing he says, he doesn't say they're the such and such, and this is how we know. He says, I think they are. And that's the issue. The issue is we have been fed what other people think, right? And it's also a deception because he he knows that those aren't the people, right? But he has to say that he thinks that they are, all right? He has to say that. He has to represent the propaganda well. So he says, I think that they're the Jewish people, and this is how we know there's this unbroken chain of culture and language. So what has been put forth in the earth is that the people that occupy Israel today are supposed to be there because they speak the language, they practice the religion, right? And they have certain customs that they practice. That is his working understanding that he provided for us. So he didn't base it off of his knowledge of who the descendants actually are. He based it based off of number one, the propaganda that has been put forth. But if we're just being fair, he based it off of practices and language and custom. Okay, that's how they decide they're going to prove who they are. All right, so let's go ahead and keep playing.
As it says in Genesis 15. Who are his descendants now, and how do we know who they are? I think they're the Jews, and we know who they are because they've always been a Jewish people. There has been an unbroken line of Jewish people, and they've lived in this land for 3,800 years. Sometimes not very many of them, because they were chased out all over the world. They were hunted down. They were almost annihilated during the Holocaust. They came back. To this day, Tucker, they represent, you know how many Jews there are in the whole world? Please. No, but I understand.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Now he's trying to deflect, right? He understands that his answer isn't sufficient. He hears it. I don't want you guys to think that Mike Huckabee is ignorant to what is really going on. I don't want you to think that Mike Huckabee doesn't understand exactly what Tucker Carlson is asking. Now, the thing that I'm perplexed about is that he would actually give Tucker Carlson this opportunity to put him on this hot seat, knowing that Tucker Carlson is who he is. This is the Lord's. This is why it's so amazing. Right? It's so amazing that the Lord allowed this to happen because if you are wise, right, and this goes into Obadiah, the prophecy of the Most High destroying the wisdom and understanding out of the mount of Esau. Because why would you, if you're trying to protect your lie, allow Tucker Carlson to come and interview the ambassador to the United States, right, and Israel? That's like, that's the worst thing you can possibly do. To have a truth guy who gets millions of views and followers sit down with the ultimate propaganda holder for an interview. That doesn't make any sense if you're the one in power. Why would you do that? All right. So Tucker Carlson even goes on in the interview. You'll hear him say, "Man, I'm so thankful we're having this conversation," as if to say, "I cannot believe that you are sitting down with me right now and having this conversation." I want to read Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. It's a passage of scripture that a lot of awakened Israelites are familiar with. It reads, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, and this is Christ speaking, by the way, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. See that? So this is the situation right now. We know that before the return of Christ, or you should know, that Satan is called the God of this world. He has dominion. And he has chosen this lie and this deception to suppress the children of Israel. When the children of Israel return to power, that is the end of his rule, his kingdom. Okay. And so these individuals that are calling themselves and perpetuating themselves to be Jews, right? The Jewish people, and there's always been a Jewish line, and we speak the language and we keep the Shabbat. And see, we're the people. This is why we're the people. See, and so this is what Revelation 2 and 9 is going into. Now, Tucker Carlson, he's not going to say that. He can't say that. But what he can do is expose how the concept of this being based on culture and religion doesn't add up and it doesn't go into what the Bible says. He does a skillful job of doing that. Let's go ahead. And I got your message too.
Okay. First of all, the greatest genocide of Jews no one ever mentions was by the Romans, where they were literally banned from Jerusalem for 500 years. Yeah, of course. And it's all awful. And I'm opposed to all of that. I'm opposed to mass killing of anybody, period. I'm opposed to hear you say that. I mean it. Yeah. And I believe that. I believe that. My question is, and it's not a bumper sticker answer, it's a sincere answer. How do we know? Because what
Stop right there.
saying is that certain
So I want to talk about that exchange real quick because you heard the devil right there as well. Okay, he tried to throw the interview off into personal attacks against Tucker, but Tucker didn't allow it. Okay, I do want you to notice that Tucker Carlson deflected. See, this is how you have to understand it. He deflected the Holocaust point because, of course, one of the propaganda points is the Holocaust, the Holocaust, the Holocaust, 6 million, 7 million, or whatever they purport. And do you know how many? And then Tucker's like, hey, yes, that's all bad. But you actually know what's worse? What happened in 70 AD. Now, I thought that was cold because, what he did was he pivoted, he pivoted their quote unquote atrocity to a real atrocity. All right. Actually, maybe I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that or whatever, but he pivoted to something that is biblical in this atrocity that actually happened to the real Israelites. So I noticed that he did that. I thought that was a great response. But then he quickly pivots back to the point. Like I don't want to get caught up in all of that and whether you think I really care about uh, people being massacred. Let's get back to this point here because this point is really important. So this is how he's masterfully handling the interview, and what you can see Mike Huckabee doing. If you're trained to hear these type of things, he's spiraling. I think it was at this moment where he realized he messed up. I truly believe at this moment is when he realized he messed up. Like, man, I am about to get grilled on who the actual people are. That's what he realized in the moment. Let's go ahead and keep playing.
People have a title to a highly contested region. They own it in some deep sense. So I think it's fair to ask, who are they and how do we know? So the current prime minister's ancestors weren't from here within recorded history. He has no deed. Bibi Netanyahu, on one side, his family's from Poland. They're from Eastern Europe. So how do we know that he has a connection to the people who God promised the land to, Abram's descendants. How do we know that? Well, if you take the genealogies that come not only from the Old but the New Testament, you see that there is a historical connection through the entirety of the Old and the New Testament that details the Jewish connection to this. Hey, listen, if you're
So the question continues as we have a little commercial in between the recording or the video. The question on the table is, well, okay, I hear you, but how do we know they are? Bibi Netanyahu, who is the prime minister or the leader of that state of Israel, he and his family are from Eastern Europe. They aren't uh, native at all. They're not practicing the religion at all. So how do we know that his people are? The obvious, that's a great question. Because if you are a realistic person, you will come to the conclusion that they're not, right? Or it's possible that, or at least it's possible. I shouldn't say that they're not. If you're a rational person and you're just listening to it objectively, right, and you don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, then you're listening to it, and then you're at least bare minimum, you should be leaving thinking they might not be the people. At bare minimum. That's why this interview is so explosive, because even the people that don't care about this topic at all, don't claim to be Israelites at all, don't have a dog in the fight either way. The common man who's never even thought about this topic. There's millions and millions and billions of people that have never even thought about this topic that are now going to leave that conversation thinking, well, we don't know that they're the people. They might not be. A rational person would have to conclude that after hearing this interview. Let's go ahead and keep playing.
That's his family? How do we know that if his family they were scattered? But how do we know it's the same people? I don't know. Why is that crazy? If you say to me, if they speak the same language, if they worship the same God, if they follow the same Bible, if they follow the same cultures and traditions, and they always pray next year in Jerusalem, and they pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and they pray facing toward Jerusalem, does that not give you a little bit of a clue as to who they are? Let's go through those things.
No, stop right there. No, the answer is no. No, it doesn't. Because just because they do all those things doesn't make them the blood descendants, though. Because even the scriptures talk about converts, right? Converts to Judaism, quote unquote. And they talk about those things later on. So then Mike Huckabee's appealing to those things. And this is how deception and propaganda works. When somebody's trying to deceive you or twist you in the conversation, they appeal to what could be, not necessarily what actually is. And that's why truth is so powerful. If you want to hear it, you can always be confused by deception. The deception is to throw you off the truth with elements of truth. So there is an element of truth in what Michael Huckabee is saying. All right. The Israelites do have a common language. The Israelites do have a common practice, right? Religious and cultural and otherwise. They do have those things, right? But that doesn't make them the descendants, though. Right? It's just something the descendants did. Now, other people emulated that. So again, we're back at square one. Them practicing these things can be an indicator, but it doesn't determine who the descendants actually are. So now Mike Huckabee, he's spiraling at this point, right? He's spiraling because you hear him at the end. He says, "Doesn't that tell you who they are? You're not going to just accept the propaganda? No, this is Tucker Carlson. This is not, one of the other Fox Media people. All right, you got something, Eli? You able to?
No, I'm just listening to you.
Okay.
Making some, definitely making some points though. Got me chuckling over here.
Oh, praise. Oh, praise. All right, so let's go ahead and continue.
This is the conversation I've wanted. Bless you. Thank you for doing this.
Stop right there. Actually, if you could stop right there.
Just go through.
When he said, "This is the conversation that I wanted to have so bad." Thank you for the. This is him very sarcastically saying, "I got you." I cannot believe that you're acting. We're here now. I can't believe that you are taking me down this road. This is what I've always wanted to do to the establishment on camera. I can't believe you have offered yourself as the sacrifice right now. That's what that's what Tucker Carlson is really saying um, in journalism speak. Yes, we're here. And then this is where Mike Huckabee, if he didn't know that he was fried before, I think he realized before, like, man, he's really grilling me. If he didn't know then, he really knows now. What he knows now is this answer Tucker Carlson isn't buying. He's not going to let off. So now I have to argue with him and say, hey, as a rational person, don't you think that that would tell you who the people are? That's not enough for you? Well, no, it's not. Because the Bible says that his descendants were promised the land. It didn't say it was based on any type of religion or culture or language. That's not what we're talking about. So he brings them back to the conversation again. Let's go ahead and keep playing.
Things. Okay. So one of the things I admire most about Israel is they resurrected a dead language in 1948. Good for them.
Well, they really didn't resurrect it. It was existent.
Okay, I'm not. That's not. But that's a compliment. I'm not fighting.
No. But it is the first time in all of human history that a language has survived through this length of time. It's. I would call it.
Now, what Tucker Carlson wants to do is he wants to set up the fact again, which he already did, that the leader of the nation doesn't fit any of the criteria that Mike Huckabee is even saying. See, that's a separate cold point right there. Number one, it doesn't even matter what Mike Huckabee is saying as it pertains to who the descendants are. But now Tucker Carlson is about to close him in on both sides because he's now about to say, okay, if you want to take this angle, I'm going to still disqualify this people. All right. So that's not going to be, I'm so happy that you're having this conversation. Let's talk about it. They restored this language, and this does determine, culture and people and who they are. That's an element of it. All right. He doesn't even understand, like Mike Huckabee, he should have heard it before, but he doesn't even understand the angle. He still hasn't processed the angle. I think he's processed now that the interview is not going to go well. He's going to keep pressing me on this point, but he doesn't even understand the angle that he's presenting is about to get shattered. Okay, the whole cultural and language, and religious angle. Okay? It's about to be demolished right now. Let's go ahead and keep going.
A miracle, one of many.
Your body warns you before kidney failure. Here are the 3 signs most.
Bear with us as we have some commercial breaks.
Netanyahu, I think it's wonderful as someone who loves language. Netanyahu's parents did not speak Hebrew. Okay, they didn't live in this region. Netanyahu, the founders of this country, were mostly secular. Some of them were avowed atheists. They were not praying for the peace of Jerusalem. They weren't praying at all because they didn't believe in God. There's no genealogy linking their families to the people of this land 3,000 years ago. They're not. So how do we know, since they didn't share a language, they didn't share a religion, they had no religion whatsoever, how do we know that they had a right to come here from Eastern Europe and
but they were
take
scattered.
the land?
They were scattered to
I understand
Eastern Europe.
that.
They were scattered.
Stop right there. Stop right there.
There were
That's heavy because what he did was he just took everything that Mike Huckabee just said as far as how we would know they're the descendants, and Hulk smashed it off. He cut the head off the snake because if Benjamin Netanyahu is not this, then the same people that he leads and are also from their region are not this. But what he did was he didn't say, hey, there's no way that they are. He never says that. But what he does is he proves it with common sense. They are from Eastern Europe. historically. They did not speak the language. They were not religious. So they weren't keeping the Torah. They were not praying toward the east. A lot of them were atheists, didn't even believe in God. So how do we so even when you want to take that route, that's disqualified because they don't speak the language, they aren't religious. So what is Bibi Netanyahu, who did change his name to that, by the way? What is he doing there? How do we know he's supposed to be there? We don't know it by the criteria that you just gave us. That was, to me, that was the coldest rebuttal point from Tucker Carlson in that interview. Is just to say, hey, even if we go by your standard of why they should be here, he doesn't fit any of that. So how do we know it's him? Back to square one again. We're back to that point again. And the rational person, again, the rational person who's listening to this objectively, you don't have a dog in the fight. At this point now, you should be hearing, oh, there's no way that they're not supposed to be there. It will be clear as day for a rational person to conclude that this must not be the people. That must not be the person. That it must not be. There's not a way that it could be. Even the answer that was given, they don't even fit that criteria. Now Mike Huckabee is flustered. He's totally flustered, right? And then he's like, well, they were scattered. Now he's appealing back to a truth. Remember, the deception is always rooted in some form of truth. Well, they were scattered. And of course, that's what the Bible tells us, that we were scattered. Yes, they were scattered. But how do we know it was them that were scattered, though? It's going back to the same thing. How do we know it was them that were scattered? Because they're not matching up with any type of criteria. We don't even have a criteria. And I think that's a logical and fair question to ask. So now that this is being put out in the earth, there's going to be millions of more people going and doing research. And then they're going to be finding the things that we've been talking about and others have been talking about. You know, the Egyptian president who made the statement that the Jews left black and came back white. And they're going to start finding other videos, things like that. And this is going to blow, right? Because it was so clear, it was so crystal clear that this guy, Mike Huckabee, had no answers for Tucker Carlson. Right? And it was clear that Tucker Carlson is insinuating that those aren't the people. So let's go ahead and keep playing.
In Ethiopia, they were in Russia, they were in Poland, they were throughout Asia. Jews were all over the place, but they were still Jews. But they were still Jews.
Okay, so then let me get to the nub of the question, since again, a lot is at stake, a lot of money is at stake, land is very valuable.
So stop right there. So look, now at the end of that answer, Mike Huckabee again just asserts, but when they were scattered, they were still Jews. Yes, but were they Jews though? Right? So now Mike Huckabee is just reinforcing, yeah, man, Bibi was scattered and you know his family, but they're still Jews. He has to say that again. So then we have to bring him back to reality again. This is a classic battle of good versus evil. And I mean good in the context of truth in this conversation. I'm not saying Tucker Carlson's a good person, right? So this is a classic example of what it looks like when truth is up against a lie, a falsehood, darkness, via deception. All right, let's go ahead and keep playing.
If you're accused of a crime, you can hide here. That's a pretty good passport to have. It's a good thing, right? So who's entitled to it?
So then he just brings him back to the same question. All right, excuse me. He just brings him back to the same question because he's just saying, hey, this is a big deal. You know, you can come here and seek asylum. Right? If you commit a crime, they talked about that molestation over in America. Then the Israeli comes back over to hide in Israel, and the U.S. doesn't extradite him to stand trial. Right? Political individual. Okay? The exposing of this place is being put forth every day, which is also prophecy, and we've talked about that. Okay? We went into that several times. So let's go ahead and keep playing.
Very discouraged in the United States from asking this question for some reason. It's a totally rational.
No, I'm not
No,
discouraged.
you're not discouraged. Yeah, others do. You're like the only person I can have this conversation with. Everyone will be like, "Shut up, Nazi." It's a foundational question.
Stop right there. And this is amazing
Speaking
too.
of-
What you guys got to understand, what Tucker Carlson just did was he, right, unbeknownst to a lot of you, just pointed out the fact that the conversation has been suppressed. That's what he did, just right there. He pointed out the fact that this conversation and this topic has been suppressed. And the way that it's been suppressed is by, and he makes fun of it, calling people Nazis. Yes, Tucker Carlson has been called a Nazi for asking these questions. He's been called an anti Semite for just asking obvious, as he calls it, foundational questions. If they're going off of the fact that they're Abraham's seed, how do we know that they're Abraham's seed? Can somebody just tell us? All right. And so this is what is happening, and it's an amazing thing that he did there just by just now spreading or shedding light on the fact that hey, they don't want you to know who the people are either, everybody. So everybody's now listening and like, oh, and so it's looking fishy for BB being or these people being Israel or Jews. And on top of that, people that ask that simple question are called Nazis. What are they hiding? This is the expose of darkness. This is the expose of the falsehood. So, yes, Hebrew Israelites have been saying these things on the corner for 40 and 50 years, and other groups of people as well. And even some of them over there, believe it or not, they understand the Bible and they know that, hey, this isn't according to prophecy. All right. But now it has been magnified on a grand scale. Okay. And this is how we're going to find out on a grand global scale who the Israelites really are. All right. It's not just only going to be by the street teachers on the corner. That's not, I mean, respectfully, I'm one of them. That's not large enough. We don't reach millions of people. All right. Even all of us combined, all the camps and congregations combined, we don't reach a billion people. We don't reach 500 million people. We don't reach 250 million people. Okay. So, this is the way that the information about who the real Israelites are, or the not not the way, but the caring of it, the topic of it being magnified in the earth, the Lord is going to do that through these kinds of interviews. Okay. So it's very, very important to recognize the unfolding of prophecy in this here interview. In this part, it was a 2-hour interview. They covered a multitude of things, but this was the one that got the most attention, and rightfully so. Let's go ahead and keep playing.
Or a religious group.
Well, I think you're looking at, for many people, it is religious. There are people who may not have a deep religious connection to Judaism, but they're still Jews.
Okay, so it's
Now he's got to back. Now he's got to
Yes.
stop right there. Now he's got to pivot. Now he's got to backpedal, and now he's got to move the goalpost. So now the goalpost was, hey, we know because of the practices and the language and the religion. Then when that gets took away, we move the goalpost to, hey, it's those things, and it's of course the bloodline lineage. It's a combination of both. Now he's really spiraling. This is an actual crash out right here. Like by Mike Huckabee. It's a professional crash out where he realizes he can't directly deal with the information, until Tucker Carlson actually just says what we should do or proposes what he actually thinks we should do. All right. Which is what will happen ultimately. But nevertheless, Mike Huckabee is crashing out here. Now it's like the goalposts get moved. It's this and it's that. Okay, but that doesn't make sense though. And then Tucker brilliantly brings him back to common sense. Let's go ahead and keep playing.
It is also religious. It is rooted in religion. You can't take it out of it. Now that means
then how can an atheist?
Well, I will tell you this: there's some people who say, "I'm Christian." They never go to church. They never pray.
Now Mike
They never
Huckabee
read
is
the Bible.
saying,
They don't.
stop right there. Now Mike Huckabee is saying, hey, you can't take religion out of it. So Mike Huckabee is realizing it's a descendancy thing. So we need to find out who the descendants are, and we need to do so by testing people. That's how we would know. So what Mike Huckabee is realizing now is, oh man, I have to reaffirm the people by saying you can't take the religion out of it. I have to appeal to the actual Judaism side of it. But the issue is he never addressed Tucker Carlson saying that many of them weren't practicing. Bibi Netanyahu wasn't practicing. And a lot of them were atheists, he said. There's not a belief in God. So it's not even about us taking religion out of it. It's not about that. It's just about who the descendants are. So that was another failed attempt. And again, the rational listener is going to see that this is the case. Like he's not making any sense right now. But Tucker's going to beautifully show the audience that this doesn't make sense. Go ahead and keep playing.
On the basis of that,
Well,
they're not entitled
they still call themselves Christian, even though they identify in that way.
Here's the difference. You're saying that people who have this identification have a deed to a huge chunk of land on the Mediterranean. Okay, so there's, it's a right. You keep telling me it's a right, and so it's totally fair to say if you come to my house and say I've got the title to your house, I get to ask, may I see it? Where'd you get it? And that's exactly what happened here. People from Europe, Eastern Europe, came here, in a lot of cases atheists, and kicked out a lot of people who lived here.
Land.
Well, but
They did not just throw people.
They bought a lot of land. There's no question about that.
A lot of land.
But they also, in 1948, kicked out a lot of people. And
the war.
It was a war. I agree. I'm not one to relitigate the history. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Okay.
Including a lot of Christians. A lot of Christians.
So stop right there. This is true. What he's saying is, hey, if you're saying that these people have the deed, we need to know because they've kicked out a lot of people. They came, they saw, they conquered, and they kicked out a lot of people based on claiming to have this right. Going back to Revelation 2 and 9. And I want to talk about that real quick. The Bible talks about that in Joel, the third chapter. Verse 1, it reads, for behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, meaning when we are freed from our servitude, and I'm gonna talk about how that's going to occur. Our freedom is going to come at a cost, a heavy price. All of this is connected, Jacob's trouble. Okay. But we will be saved out of it. So we're going to start understanding the proper chronology of prophecy. Verse 2, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, who they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So the prophecy is concerning this restoration, this proper restoration. And the Lord is speaking against individuals who have done the spreading of the Israelites. So the Bible is saying here the individuals that have spread the Israelites have also parted the land, appointed it into their possession. Okay, another passage of scripture says this is prophecy. So we know that in the end times, before Christ returns, there's a people there who are occupying the land who have done so by parting it and destroying God's people. That's what we see in the Bible. So we know here at the news class is what's going on, but a lot of people don't know that. So how is this truth going to be revealed in a practical way? And this is how through these interviews. You know? So Tucker makes mention of that. He's like, "This is a big deal. They came in and took the land and bought the land. You know, they conquered it. They kicked out people. It's important to know who has the right to the land." Let's go ahead and keep playing.
And they lost their homes. They've never been allowed back. And all of this was justified on the basis of this identity that forms this ticket to the right that you keep referring to. So my question is very simple. I'm going to wait patiently for an answer. Does this right derive from religious affiliation or from genetics?
I would say it's both. But I would also say that when you said the Christians were kicked out, Tucker, Christianity is growing in Israel. And there is a big lie that goes out there. But let me finish this because
I just wanted to say that. Go ahead and keep playing. This is just fluff right here.
Christians are really not treated well in Israel. That's a lie.
Well, there are lots of different. There are lots of different.
There were 34,000 Christians in Israel in 1948. There are 184,000 Christians here today.
And by Israel, what are you counting?
You talking about the land?
What territory are you counting? You're counting about Israel proper? Or are you counting
about Israel
the West
proper.
Bank as well and Gaza? I mean, what do you?
So now, even though stop right there. Even though the conversation Mike Huckabee is wanting to take it left, you see what he wants to do to get off of this point by talking about a moot point that Tucker kind of presented, the whole Christian aspect of it. And by the way, Christianity is on the rise here, and like that's not what we're talking about at all, right? But in the midst of him doing that, he also puts his foot in his mouth again, and Tucker calls him out on it and says, well, "So what's the borders? All right, what Israel are we talking about? What land are we talking about? All right, so now we have to have another conversation, another tough conversation about the borders and where they're supposed to be, and are they evolving? And they've been evolving because Genesis 15 says something very specific, and Israel is not occupying all of that right now. So are they trying to occupy all of that? All right. Is that the purpose of these wars and them messing with Lebanon and messing with Iran and messing with, you know, Yemen, Palestine? Let's go ahead and keep playing.
Counting about Israel proper? Or are you counting about the West Bank as well and Gaza? I mean, what do you when you say Israel? Those numbers apply to what landmass?
It would be in Israel proper.
Okay,
there's 184,000. Now I'll tell you where Christians are not doing very well. They're not doing very well in the Muslim-controlled countries. There's almost no Christians in Qatar, for example, except those who live in the Christian ghetto, who are the service workers.
I'm sorry. Look, I don't want to argue with you.
So now he's trying to move the goalpost. Stop. He's trying to move the goalpost, and Tucker's going to oblige him for a little while, right? So you can see him moving the goalpost. And by the way, Christians they're not doing good in those Muslim countries. It's like, hey, man, look, we're going to talk about this topic no matter what. Right? We're not moving anywhere. So I thought that was a beautiful job by Tucker Carlson. But he did engage kind of in this point in this topic, but then he brings him back again. We're not talking about Christians and Qatar, right? Even though you're wrong about saying that, I'm going to expose that propaganda real quick. But let's get back. So let's go ahead and keep playing.
Live in the Christian ghetto, who are the service workers.
I'm sorry. Look, I don't want to argue with you. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel. This isn't true. Well, it actually is true. And I refer you to Wikipedia, Mr. Ambassador.
Wikipedia.
I refer you to the government of Qatar, the government of Israel. These are knowable facts. Like, I'm in Jordan, by the way.
Numbers are down in Syria. The numbers are down in Lebanon. The numbers are down.
There are about twice as
they're
many.
arguing over who's more Christians in what land. Doesn't really matter, right? Go ahead and keep playing.
Okay, we're mixing some many different categories here. I'm just saying I get things wrong all the time. You've just gotten something wrong, and I think it's important to acknowledge it. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel. Fact.
How many?
Now you caught me. I don't know. I can look at my phone, but I was just there.
So now he did get caught. He get caught there, you know, a little bit. Tucker got caught when he said that, hey, there's more Christians in Qatar than Israel. Pretty much, Mike Huckabee was like, prove it. And then he was like, look, you got me there. I don't have the numbers right now. But anyway, let's get back to the real conversation. Let's go ahead.
Point that forms the basis of this whole conversation, which is who has a right to the land? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi
That was a crazy commercial.
said it's a mixture of religion and ethnicity. Because, as I noted, and you agree, many of the founders, maybe the majority of the founders of modern Israel, did not believe in God at all. So they were not religious Jews. They weren't religious at all. They were atheists. So they said they were atheists. I believe them. So that suggests it's ethnic. But it's also true, as you well know, because there's a famous court case about this, that ethnic Jews who convert to Christianity do not have the right of return. That was settled by the Israeli Supreme Court. I'm very confused. So that would suggest it's not ethnicity, because you invalidate your Jewishness by converting to Christianity.
There are a number of Messianic Jews who live in Israel.
We're here. I'm aware of this.
So now he's pointing out just the whole confusion as to it all, whether it's about ethnicity or whether it's about religion or both. He disqualifies again those Jewish people from being Jews based off of religion, because he said the founders were largely atheists. They did not care about, the Most High. They didn't care. They weren't praying. They didn't believe in any type of God at all. These are the people. They're literally a godless people that actually bought and parted the land. So that's disqualified again. So what Tucker is pretty much breaking down is, hey, I'm just confused at how you guys have done this. It just seems like you guys got together. That's what you would draw the conclusion of if you're objectively looking at this. It seems like the rich and powerful got together and said, we're just going to take this land and say it's ours because we have an inherited right. We've created a new language and we're going to start speaking this Hebrew and keeping the Shabbat. This is essentially what you would conclude. Okay, let's go ahead and keep playing.
Because you invalidate your Jewishness by converting to Christianity.
There are a number of Messianic Jews who live in Israel.
We're here. I'm aware of that number, but you're not contesting what I'm saying because it's a very famous court case.
The right of return has to do with your mother, your grandmother. It has to do with family ties. Ethnic. There's a lot of ethnicity is a big part of the right of return.
Right.
To make aliyah, then to come to Israel, then live here.
Then if both of your parents are Jewish and you have an ethnic right to land, you are one of Abram's descendants, but you convert to Christianity, how is it you don't have the right to return? I'm totally confused.
But I know a number of people who have returned as Christians, but have Jewish history.
So he never answers the question. Mike Huckabee never answers that question. He's just like, but I know people that have done it. So, I mean, it's not necessarily not true. So what Tucker's pointing out is not only have these people who don't necessarily belong there or have any true rights there come and taken over, they now dictate at their own will, however they please, who can come and who can't. So people who can't or who have no true claim to the land, biologically or religious-wise, are now gatekeeping who can come into the land when they might have ancestry there and based off of their ethnicity. So it's just totally insane. He's just showing that it's a cabal of people that have taken over this place and they decide who can come and who can't. And there's no real objective way of looking at it. And this is what Tucker is finally exposing. All right, let's go ahead.
Return. I'm totally confused.
But I know a number of people who have returned as Christians, but have Jewish history.
Are you saying that Jews who convert to Christianity have a right, a legal right to return?
Because I know that they do. When you say, do they have a right to return? Do they prove?
It's a legal category as in any government.
Which is by their family history, their grandmother, their mother, and there are many aspects of that.
I've read it. I think,
but I know that these are people who were Christian, and they came here, made Aliyah. They had Jewish blood, Jewish history. They were Christian, Messianic, but they came here, and they were welcomed here.
And they were given full legal rights.
Absolutely.
And a passport, too. So clearly, it's not true that you invalidate your right of return by converting to Christianity. That's just false.
I'm not aware of that. I know that there are a number of Christians here. I go to church with Christians every week here.
Of course.
And
you have a right to come and say, I am an ethnic Jew, even though I practice Christianity. Therefore, I have every bit as much right to move into a settlement in the West Bank or into East Jerusalem or anywhere I want, Galilee, anywhere, because I'm returning to the land of my forefathers. I have a legal right in the state of Israel, even though I've converted to Christianity. You're saying that's true?
I'm saying I know people who've done it. Now, can I tell you what the law specifically is? I'm not sure.
Well, it's really
I'm a Christian. I don't have any Jewish roots, so therefore, I cannot quote you the law. If you want me to do that, I'll look at it.
Now, Mike, in fairness, Mike Huckabee, he's like kind of passing the buck and saying, hey, there's only so much I can do. I don't know these laws. So, like, this is over my head. This is above my pay grade. You can pass the buck. Do I think Mike Huckabee knows? Yes. But in fairness, his job, with what his job is, it's not really his job to know exactly all the laws of how Israel is ran, as far as I know, him being an ambassador. It's not his job to kind of operate in their court systems and things like that. So that was like a fair thing that he said. It's like, hey, I don't know. I just know I go to church with them, and I think so. It was just something he was ignorant on. But we're gonna get back to it though. Let's go ahead.
I don't have any Jewish roots, so therefore I cannot quote you the law. If you want me to do that, I'll look at it.
Well, it really matters because you're saying, in fact, people in the United States are being called anti-Semites. A lot of them, including me, because they somehow don't.
I want you to stop right there.
Israel has a right.
You guys can't see the clip, but when you see the video, and hopefully, later this year we'll have some visuals so you guys can see what we're seeing. But when he said this is important because a lot of people are being called anti-Semites, Mike Huckabee gave this wry, evil grin, like, yeah. Like, what is funny about that? What is funny about the fact that people are being called Nazis and anti-Semites for simply asking questions that make sense? What's funny about that? Right? So I wanted y'all to notice that if you guys go and watch that video or rewatch it, some of you guys probably going to want to rewatch it after you hear the end of the breakdown. You're going to go back and see him smile like that. What is funny? What is funny about people being called Nazis and anti-Semites? It's a very serious charge. People lose their livelihoods for that. All right. So he smiles there. As Tucker is saying, this is a very important question because I'm being called an anti-Semite for even asking these things. Of course, there's no response to that. Right? That's the biggest game that is played. Oh, you're an anti-Semite if you question Israel's right to defend itself. You mean their right to kill innocent children? You mean that? But I digress. Let's go ahead. I wanted to point that out, though.
Semites, a lot of them, including me, because they somehow don't believe that Israel has a right to this land.
Do you think Israel has a right to this land?
No, you haven't defined what the land is, and you haven't defined who Israel is, so I really don't know.
It is the land.
And that's a great point right there. If we can stop. So Mike Huckabee is like, well, he's super flustered now. Now he's crashed out completely. Now he's just wanting to know, after he realized he stomped out, well, do you think they have a right to be here? Now he wants to blame shift. Now we have to get to demonizing Tucker Carlson. Because now I want to put the ball in your court. Well, you're saying all of this. Do you think that they have the right to be here? Now we're back over here because He already brought up the anti-Semitism point, so now he's giving Tucker an opportunity to prove why he's an anti-Semite. This is the next deception move. So that there was deception in that question. It doesn't matter what Tucker Carlson thinks. He's the interviewer. You're the one supposed to be the interviewee. It matters what you think. It doesn't matter what Tucker thinks. So that was just a deflection there. All right. But Tucker beautifully responds and says, "You haven't, I don't know. I can't, I'm trying to ask you. You haven't defined anything for me. I'm trying to get a definition out of you, a working definition." So I thought that was a beautiful answer, even though you can see clearly there just the blame shifting and trying to turn it back on Tucker. All right, let's go ahead and keep playing.
Define what the land is, and you haven't defined who Israel is. So I really don't know.
It is the land they're living in now, the borders that they have.
The borders are moving. The borders have moved in the last year.
What do you mean the borders have moved?
Well, they are the 1967 borders. I'm including, the
East
West
Jerusalem and
East Jerusalem,
Judea and Samaria.
What are the borders of Judea and Samaria?
Well, you basically take the Jordan River, and it's west of the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, to the Lebanon border. And Israel did have control of the Sinai. They gave that to Egypt. They had control of it.
Right.
I gave it away in 1979 in the peace agreement.
But, okay,
So
whatever you call it, the land that was taken from Jordan in 1967, you call it Judea and Samaria. There's a significance to that I don't fully understand. I'm not against it.
It's the biblical
It's the biblical
terms. 80% of the Bible happened in Judea and Samaria.
But we've also established that the Bible gives Jews the right to occupy the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. So I'm very confused by why we've shrunk the land and why we're
Israel has shrunk the land. They have made that decision. That's why they gave away.
Now's
the sign.
Now's the part for
given
the
away
real
a lot of
question.
things.
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple.
Boom.
We've cracked the human genome.
Stop right there. This is the best part, all right? And of course, this is the part of the interview that we posted on our Instagram page. Make sure you guys go to Sanctuary of Saints Instagram page, follow that. This is the bombshell part. We now have genetic testing. In times past, DNA testing has been extremely flawed due to a lack of certain sciences. I'll put it that way, or the revealing of certain sciences. Okay. So what Tucker Carlson just said was, we've cracked the human genome. We can easily do that. I don't think people really caught that or understand what that means. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we just do genetic testing? This is a bombshell. Israel, we have our understanding of who we say the Israelites are. Some of us adhere to a chart, all right, or a 12 tribe sign. Others go off of migration patterns and things of that nature. What you got to understand that God is doing is he is utilizing the devil's technology, the devil's sciences, to reveal the truth of who the people are. That's what he's going to do. Science is going to be able to, all this technology that you're seeing, the rise of AI that we've been talking about, that's going to take over the entire planet, right? It is the final boss in Revelation. And we've talked about that. It's going to facilitate the oppression of our people, known as Jacob's trouble, that we'll be saved out of. But also is going to reveal, all right, the science, all of these advancements is going to be able to easily, that's what Tucker Carlson said, easily tell us who we are. We're going to know our tribes. We can know that. we have a chart and we're like, yeah, we're looking at this, and I'm not saying that's inefficient, right? I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but science is literally going to be able to tell us who we are and where we come from. Tucker goes on to make another point in saying, hey, this phenomenon that we're seeing here is not only happening here, it's happening around the world. People are being displaced everywhere who feel like they've lived in that land and had uh, the right to that land for thousands of years. Why don't we just do genetic testing to see where everybody is supposed to be? That's a bombshell. The fact that he's saying we've cracked the human genome, we can easily do it. I don't want you guys to think about the flawed science that you've been accustomed to critiquing and saying, "Hey man, when we got this DNA test, they came back a dog and a cat, and they had two different this." And we're not talking about that anymore. That's a thing of the past. This new science that they have, they've cracked. Did it? I want to make sure maybe I jumped the gun because I watched it so many times. Um, did he say that we've cracked the human genome? Did he say that part yet?
Con, he did.
I didn't hear you.
Yes, he did. He did.
Okay, okay, he said that. So we've cracked the human genome. I had to look that up. I looked up what it means to crack the human genome. Cracking or sequencing the human genome means determining the precise order of the 3 billion chemical gases which make up DNA. It acts as a comprehensive blueprint or map of human genetic material, allowing scientists to identify, map, and analyze all genes to understand diseases, evolution, and individual genetic. Okay. So these are some aspects of what it means to crack the human genome. Okay, so it involves fragmenting DNA, reading the sequences, and reassembling them to understand the instructions for building and operating a human being. So basically, what they can do is they can reverse engineer DNA to figure out where you come from, okay? What family you're from, down to the nitty gritty. All they need is a piece of anything that has DNA on it. All right, that's all they need. All they need is a fragment of a bone, any type of sample at all, right? Of anything ancient, and they are finding ancient things all around the world being discovered every day. Prophecy goes into how the earth is going to help the woman. So, a lot of us, including myself, we did teach at times. I taught, well, man, they can't do it through DNA testing because what bones are they comparing it against? Then, we go to the scripture that the bones of the kings burned in the sun and things of that nature. Right? But then I realized those were the bones of the kings that it said. And did it say all the kings? And did it say all the people? Right. So this is to me is ground shaking because Tucker Carlson has just proposed something that the Bible talks about. Testing everybody. Just test to see who Abraham's descendants are. We can do it now. It's fairly easy to do, he's saying. So I just thought that was crazy to think about. How he's saying it's fairly easy to do. So what technology is this? Let's go ahead and keep playing.
Yes. Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean, maybe it would be.
Wait, stop right there. Stop
It would
right there.
prove who Abram's
He
descendants.
is. Can you hear? Hey, Eli, can you hear how confounded he is? I just want to make sure I'm not tripping, bro. He's
Yeah,
like,
bro.
uh, 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 I don't know what that would prove. What do you mean you don't? The whole conversation is about who the descendants are. How don't you know what that was? That was like a brain fart that he said that because the topic literally is He said it 2 sentences prior. Well, why don't we do this? Because we don't know who the descendants are. That's clear from your answers. Why don't we do this? And then he's saying he doesn't know what that would prove. It would prove who the descendants of Abraham are, thus, who should be in the land. Duh. Like, I can't believe that he let, actually, I can't, because what else do you say? Because the people that want to hold on to the lie, they get to now regurgitate, that doesn't prove anything. But they'll be quickly looked at as someone who does not have good sense and is obviously with the regime. Because of course it makes sense. If it's about descendancy and we can test to see who the descendants are, then we just do the testing. Now, this is what's so cold about this. Actually, let's go ahead and keep playing before I break this down prophetically and show us this, because a lot of us think that the Exodus is coming via you know, UFOs, angels, chariots, beaming us out of America, putting us in Israel, and that is nonsense. It's absolute folly. You get it from Revelation 11. You don't know what that's talking about. We'll have to do a breakdown on that as well. But that's wrong. That's not how the second Exodus happens, coming out of Jacob's trouble. Go into Jacob's trouble, and then we go into the Exodus. We shall be saved out of it. Okay. Now let's go ahead and keep playing.
It's doing that. I have no idea what that would prove. I mean, maybe it would be. What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you just explained to me, if we do that all over the world, and everybody, this is the only country.
So, hey, are you able to turn it up? It kind of turned down a little bit.
Hold on 1 second.
If so, like if you could just take it back like 30 seconds, let's try it again. If not, I'll just say what's going on.
It would be, what do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm
Stop right there. So he beautifully just breaks down, hey, you're saying you don't know what it proves. Like I'll like he does a great job of not losing his cool, because I might have looked at him and said, hey, stop playing. Stop playing with me right now. Then we're talking about who's supposed to be there this whole time, and I might have told Mike Huckabee about himself at that point in time. That's kind of losing my decorum on the journalist side, because then Mike Huckabee would then get to play with me and say, well, hey, bro, calm down, man. Just trying. I'm here interviewing you, doing you a favor, right? So Tucker just, okay, this is what it would prove. It would prove who's supposed to be there based off of the theology that we both believe in, right? So now he's making him say yes. Let's go ahead.
If you believe the theology that you just explained to me, would we do that all over the world? And everybody, this is the only country in the world that you've said.
Stop right there. And then Mike Huckabee, he's not saying yes or no. He's just saying, would we do this all over the world? Yes. Yes. We would do it all over the world. We would test all over the world to see who's who. I'm going to read to you now in your hearing Isaiah the 60th chapter. It reads, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. Now, what does that look like? That looks like everyone knowing and recognizing who we are, gross darkness. So if you understand prophecy, as I do, then you understand that gross darkness is the time that the Bible describes as the day of the Lord. Okay? When everything is being overturned, where the society as we understand it now is going to flip. Right? mass destruction and the things that we talked about earlier via Matthew 24. It is during this time, and also the same time simultaneously being Jacob's trouble, that our light comes. Our light coming upon us and us being seen and recognized as the Israelites is what ultimately, on a practical level, frees us. It frees us from the bondage because then the people of the earth, by and large, recognize these are the Israelites. Skip the religion, skip the fringes, skip the, keeping of the Sabbath day. Right? I'm not saying skip it as in not doing it. I'm saying people are not going to be talking about those things as it pertains to the Israelites. They'll just be talking about them being in that hotly contested region. They're supposed to be there. And how about that? None of y'all are supposed to be there. It's supposed to be these people. Okay, that is what it looks like for us to be recognized. Now, of course, there's a deeper understanding of that light coming upon us and the glory of the Lord being seen upon us, right? On a physical level, but just on a literal, practical level, right here, that's what it looks like. I'm reading on. It says, "And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising." All right. What does that look like? That looks like us being recognized as the people, and then other nations of people there. It says their kings, their rulers, their nobles, they're going to come to us. They're going to help us. They're going to give us things. That's how you come out of captivity and out in the second Exodus. Now, I want to take you guys somewhere to another passage of scripture that we continually use but don't understand. Isaiah 14. All right, how long do we have left on this video?
About like 3 minutes.
I didn't hear you.
About like 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. Okay. So I'm gonna hold Isaiah 14 because this is gonna be I'll have that be one of the last scriptures of class. Okay, maybe the last one. But I searched something else that I want to break down. I asked AI, I asked, how can cracking the human genome trace lineage? I was curious about that. Remember, he's saying it's easy for us to do that now. So I typed that in. It says cracking the human genome traces lineage by analyzing genetic markers, specifically mitochondrial DNA, for maternal lines and Y chromosomes for paternal lines that are passed down with minimal changes, revealing ancestral origins and migration patterns. Researchers compare modern DNA against ancient genomes to identify shared mutations, determining relatedness and population of movements over thousands of years. Mhm. Ancient DNA comparison. By comparing modern genomes to ancient DNA, scientists can uncover interbreeding, admixture, and ancient migration routes. Uh, then I asked, how has the human genome solved how has the human genome being solved advanced DNA testing? Because I wanted to see how it has improved it, from what it was with 23andMe and Me and those types of things. Solving the human genome completed in 2022. So I realized this was completed in 2022. That means, first of all, understand any technology that they tell you about, there's way more that they haven't told you about. Okay? This is something that I've been teaching in this class for years, but it was completed in 2022. It revolutionized DNA testing by enabling high throughput next generation sequencing, making it faster and cheaper. This advancement shifted focus from analyzing single genes to mapping whole genomes, facilitating rapid diagnostics, precision medicine, and the identification of complex genetic variants and non-coding DNA roles. Uh, I'm going to read a couple of comprehensive points. So, rapid diagnostics technology now allows for diagnosing rare genetic diseases in just hours. It's just going through some of what they're able to do. Um, where did I want? There was one more point I wanted to get. This progress, including the development of rapid long-read sequencing technologies, has shifted the landscape from identifying single mutations to understanding the entire complex landscape of the human genome. So basically, they were just able to expand what they were looking at as far as the DNA, and they now have all the sequencing necessary to pinpoint your ancestors in time. All right, long story short, I'm not a scientist in that field, but that is what has changed, right? There's a lot more technology than we know about, and we realize. So then he's saying, would we do that all over the world? Yes. Yes, we would do it all over the world. Obviously, weren't we scattered throughout the four corners of the earth? Now, Tucker doesn't say this, but I'm saying this. Weren't we scattered throughout the four corners of the earth? So, this is the beginning, if you will. This is the spark, if you will, of this idea of we need to truly understand who these descendants are. How many views? Can you see how many views that has?
On the video, it has 430,000.
You said 430,000?
Con, can you hear me?
I can't hear you. I can hear you now. You're kind of breaking up.
Yeah, 430,000.
Okay, and that was a clip. That's not the whole 2 hour interview, right? So that was a clip. I saw. I think last I checked for the whole interview was like 3 million. It's like 3 million views. Okay, this isn't the last time a conversation like this is going to happen. This has opened up Pandora's box because now people realize this is crazy. They might, at bare minimum, you should conclude they might not be the people. Bare minimum. The ones who know are going to say, we know they aren't the people. These are who the people are. And that is how this thing is going to grow and spread like never before. And again, we're not talking about Israelites who are going to be keeping the laws of God and having the faith of Christ like we aim to do here. We're just talking about knowing who the people are. Right, so this is huge. Now I want to. That's pretty much it. Okay, on the video, we don't need to get any more. Okay, but I want to bring us to this last point because I want you to understand why I said this interview had prophetic implications. So I pointed you in that direction in Isaiah 60, but I want to read for you guys Isaiah 14 really slow. This is a scripture that has been interpreted incorrectly for a long time, right? And even by myself, I've not fully understood what's being said here. So I'm going to read it really slow. This is Isaiah chapter 14, and I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. So the topic here is the Lord choosing Jacob and Israel. Now, interestingly enough, when you read Isaiah 13, that goes into the civil war that America is going to have. And then after that, all of a sudden, we got boom, the Lord having mercy on Jacob. What is that talking about? That's out of Jacob's trouble. So this is that time frame. America's declining. They get ransacked. They get uh, pillaged, right, by the Medes. They get invaded. A lot of people don't know America gets invaded and things like that. And then it says the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and yet choose Israel out of that gross darkness. Right, same situation. Read it on. It says, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them. So the them are the Israelites. The strangers are not the Israelites. So the strangers are going to be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. So the strangers, they're going to cleave. We're going to go with you. Now, why are they cleaving? They're cleaving because the whole earth is out of whack. Wars, disease, famines everywhere, everything turned upside down, new borders, new migrations, everybody's going everywhere. By this time that we're reading this, the, the earth is going to look much different than what you understand it right now to be. So people are going to be cleaving to whatever is best, whatever makes the most sense. And this is going to be the deepest truth on the earth. That's the light coming and shining, and people seeing that out of this chaos, right? Out of all of this confusion and turmoil and tribulation, this is the one ray of hope that we have. And some people are going to see that and they're going to cleave to us. All right. By that point in time, we will not be talking about who can or cannot be saved. I promise you. I promise you that debate, nobody's going to be talking about that. Half the people that are arguing about it are going to be fatalities, right? They will not even exist anymore because of the times that are coming ahead of us. Okay. We won't be talking about that. It's going to be a totally different attitude. It's not going to be like, oh man, is that an Edomite? They can sit over here by me. All right. Nobody's going to be thinking like that. I kind of laugh at all of what's going on right now because I'm thinking to myself, you guys don't even get it. These conversations won't be a thing. The attitude will change. The spirit will change. All right. Because of the destruction and the loss of life, the massive loss of life. You're not going to be worried about who's this person and where, if they're this, or it's not going to be any of the hostility for just ridiculous reasons. I'll just say that. Okay. So, anyway, reading verse 2, it says, and the people shall take them. Now, here's the issue. We've been looking at this as a lot of us, the people being Israel, taking the strangers, to our place. That's not how this should be understood. That's wrong. The people are the cleavers. They're going to take us and bring us to our place. That's what this is going into. That's what they're going to do. They're going to take us and bring us back to our place. What Tucker Carlson is talking about is going to spark something, has sparked something. And when all of these genetic testing starts to get done and our light shines upon the people, they're going to take us to our place. There's going to be so much migration patterns and things like that, new migrations going on during this time. You're not going to like, it's going to make total sense as the time approaches. I'll say it like this. What I'm saying right now, it will make way more sense in 5 years, all right, in 6, 7 years. It'll make more sense. They're going to take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. So, what the Bible is going into is the same people, the same groups of people that were oppressing us, that had us captive. They're going to come to the brightness of our rising, and they're going to cleave unto us, realizing we had it wrong, right? A lot of them. All right. I'm not saying all of them because then you're going to have enemies. This is where we have to start having good discernment. You have cleavers here, and then you have enemies who don't cleave. They would be against us returning. Right? We still will have adversaries when we go back to the land. A lot of Gentiles will say, wow, let's put him back, like Tucker Carlson. But then you have the Mike Huckabee side of the Gentiles that say, nah, I don't think we should be. You see him gatekeeping. You see the two sides. You see the two different Gentiles. All right. One set wants to really know who the descendants are and put them back into their land because he believes in the Bible. This is what some Hebrew Israelites have to understand. Like, Tucker Carlsons exist. There's a lot of them. And they think that the real Israelites should be put back in the land. And then you have the Mike Huckabees, who's like, nah, we're going to keep it as is. Okay. And so this is going to be how we get back, not being beamed up into chariots like you think Revelation 11 is talking about, right? That's how it's going to happen via all of these testings and everybody knowing who we are. Okay. And so that's what this interview essentially has done. It has opened up the possibility. Right? It has exposed us to the methodology and how we can know who the Israelites are, or I would say how the masses will know who the Israelites are. We know through faith, right? We know through different archaeological evidence and things of that nature. But for the masses who don't care about the Bible, who don't care about these migration patterns and deep things like that, I have a simple test where I can go and see I'm an Israelite or not, or where I come from. Boom. Okay, so this is actually and practically how the Israelites are going to be brought back to their land, recognized, right, all over the earth, and then brought back to their land by other people who believe they're the people and that they're the people of God and cleave. Okay? And then being servants and handmaids is not chattel slavery. It is not us cracking the whip at dawn, right? At dusk and dawn. That's not what it looks like. Okay? So, with that being said, I wanted to point that out for us here in the news class tonight. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High. Brother Eli, did you have any closing words before we close out?
It was a great lesson.
My all praises to the Most High. So we'll be back tomorrow afternoon for our Sabbath class. Hope to see you guys then. Tap in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We're going to be doing this news class on this platform from here on out. So if you enjoyed that, make sure you like, share, subscribe so that the information can spread. And with that, we're going to go ahead and see you guys tomorrow. Peace.